My apologies, due to a technical glitch in the last video, the audio was not there and I was not audible. I did not really look at the comments, but my apologies for that. Let's redo it. Let's restart our discussion. Please confirm if the audio is available now. Okay, can we start? All right. So I'll not redo the notes are already here, but we'll go through the explanation again and we'll just do the analysis again. Okay, so 1st of May we'll start with the Hindu analysis. First important article is around Iran's nuclear program, wherein Iran has said that it has vowed to protect its nuclear program. So the whole debate, the conflict that we see, or the war that we see right now between US, Iran and Israel has largely been around Iran's nuclear program. Correct. Iran time and again has been saying that I am, like we are not building this nuclear program for any destructive purposes. We are building it only for our peaceful purposes, for our civilian energy needs. So we are not going to do anything destructive with that, but we want to take care of our nuclear, uranium enrichment program. We want to build our nuclear capabilities for peaceful purposes only. But the US has been suspecting that it is not being done for peaceful purposes. It will be used for destructive purposes, and that's why the US every time has been telling Iran that please stop your uranium enrichment program, stop your nuclear programs. But Iran has also made it clear that it is not going to do so. That's why we see this entire conflict, this entire war, the blockade also, the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Then there is a naval blockade on Iran. US is not allowing Iran's ships that are carrying oil to leave Iran, and Iran is not able to sell that oil outside. So a lot of chaos is happening because of all this. And then Iran again has sent this statement that we are not going to stop our nuclear program. We are going to develop it, and we are developing it for peaceful purposes only. So we'll not be able to reach a conclusion unless the peace talks are negotiated. The first round of peace talks that failed, but we are waiting for the second round. So whenever that happens, the leaders need to come together on the negotiating table, and they need to decide what is going to be the future of this entire thing, because right now the entire world is paying a cost of it. Because when we talk about this crisis that we are seeing, because of that the global oil prices are increasing. So what has Iran said? That it is going to safeguard its nuclear and missile capabilities, and it will set down new rules for managing the Strait of Hormuz. Right now there is a blockade, the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, but Iran is saying that Tehran is going to maintain its supremacy on the Strait of Hormuz, and it is going to come up with new laws on how this transit route should be operated, how the transshipment activity should take place, how oil should be supplied. Okay. And Iran's president has also said that Persian Gulf is inseparable part of Iran's identity, and the blockade, the US blockade, is doomed to fail. So Iran is giving its statement, US is giving its statement. US is saying that the blockade is very, very effective. The naval blockade that we have put on Iran is very effective, and so far we have seized 41 tankers with 69 million barrels of oil that Iran can't sell. Now, because of this, what is happening? An artificial supply shock has been created. Artificial supply shock. The total supply is not less. The total supply is there. You see, 69 million barrels of oil are already, it's already there. It's lying there, and Iran is not able to sell it. So total supply is there, but available supply has come down. So this is the issue at the moment, and because of the limited available supply or the reduced available supply, global oil prices are rising. Oil prices have soared to 4-year highs on Thursday, with the global benchmark Brent spiking more than 7% to $126.41 a barrel for June delivery. Right? The global oil prices have increased because of this artificial supply shock that has been manufactured in the world at the moment because of this naval blockade. And this is not a small amount that we're talking about. 69 million barrels of oil is simply lying there, ready to be shipped, but it cannot be shipped. So in the long run, a lot of things are going to happen. Iran will also face economic losses. It is facing economic losses because this was for export. It is not able to export this, so economic losses are happening. Then it might also have to reduce its production capacity, reduce the production also, because this is lying idle. And what is going to happen? The storage capacity is also finite. If you just keep on producing oil and you're not able to sell it, only the production is increasing, you will only store it. But storage supply or the storage capacity is actually finite. You either store it on land or you fill it in the ships, whatever you do, it is finite. So when the storage is going to be filled, then what is going to happen? If the blockade continues for a long run, then Iran might also have to cut down its production, because it will not be able to sell anything out, right? So that will happen. And then in the long run, oil can also start degrading, because of this oil, if it just lies idle for a long duration of time, all the valuable or all the important elements that are present, the lighter elements that are present in the oil, they are going to evaporate. Only the heavy and the dense part is going to be left, which is not exactly the most profitable part or the most attractive part of that oil. So that is going to be left away. So in the long run, the oil will also start degrading. So this is what? This is a great loss. Over what? This is the bigger question that is being asked, that we are causing such amount of an economic stress for the entire world over what? That this economic corridor has been blocked, and then we are talking about the blockade also, the naval blockade on Iran. Then we are also talking about this oil sitting idle and the artificial supply shock that has been created in the entire world because of the limited available supply. So right now it is actually the most important thing that both the leaders, they come together on a negotiating table, they decide what can be the terms and conditions that actually benefit both the parties, and we can have the entire world benefit from it. Okay, is the voice audible? All right, now moving on to the second article. The second article is about the states with revenue deficits. So there are some states, some large states that have revenue deficit in India, and the center is saying that the states which have revenue deficits may face fiscal stress also. So they have a revenue deficit and they can also face a fiscal stress. So for that, how will that happen? For that, we need to understand what is revenue deficit and how can that give rise to fiscal stress. So when we talk about revenue deficit, it is revenue expenditure exceeding the revenue income. Revenue expenditure, like whatever are the recurring expenditure of the state, like salaries, pensions, interest payments, they have to be made. They have to be made every time. Salary, pension, interest payment, all the recurring payments, right? Every month you have to do this, you have to pay this. So this is the revenue expenditure. And when we talk about revenue income, then we'll need to understand that when we talk about the center, the union government, it has more flexibility when it comes to revenue income, generating revenue income because of its taxing capacity. But when we talk about states, they have a very limited flexibility when it comes to generating this income, because what can they do? They can get it from VAT. They can get it from VAT. They can get it from their share of the GST, right? So these are some ways in which the revenue can be received. But the states that we are talking about, 9 out of 18 large states, they are right now in revenue deficit, meaning that their revenue expenditure has exceeded revenue income. So some states are in revenue deficit, some are also in revenue surplus, which means that they are doing good fiscal planning. They have a revenue surplus, and some also have a revenue balance, which is also a good thing. But the problem with deficit is that the states that have revenue deficit, they can also lead to fiscal stress. That means that whatever money, for example, there is deficit. Okay, now they're going to borrow money. These states are going to borrow money. Now whatever money they are going to borrow, if they just spend that money on this part, let's say there's a huge revenue deficit a state is in, and it does not have the money to pay out the salary, the pension, the interest payment. So it is going to borrow money. When it borrows money, either from the center or from the outside, it is going to first prioritize this. This is going to be paid. Then what is going to be compromised? The development or the capital expenditure, investment, the investment side, the development side. So infrastructure spending can be reduced, health spending can be reduced, education spending can be reduced, because the priority is to take care of the recurring payments. So if the states, they start borrowing simply to take care of the revenue side of it, then the development is going to suffer, and that is going to give rise to fiscal stress. Okay. So the article says that some states, they not only have revenue deficit, but they also have a debt burden. I already told you that they have huge past loans, or they have high interest payments. So it's a dual burden that they have. One, they have a revenue deficit, and two, they have a debt burden. So whatever they are borrowing, that is majorly going only on taking care of the revenue expenditure, on taking care of the recurring payments. They do not really have anything left for taking care of the developmental needs. Okay, for example, Punjab spends 22.8% of its revenue just on interest. That is a huge share. 23% of whatever you are getting, whatever revenue you are generating, if you are going to spend only all of that only on interest payments, then what is exactly left for you to develop? So these are the challenges that, capital expenditure is going to come down, development will suffer if this dual deficit, if this deficit of revenue and debt burden is not reduced. Okay. So this graph mentioned these 9 states. So we have Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Haryana, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Punjab and Himachal Pradesh that are suffering right now with revenue deficit. So what options do these states have? They have limited options. First, they can cut or reprioritize their spending. So they can cut their spending. So where are they going to cut it from? They'll cut it from the development part. They're going to cut it from the investment part, from the infrastructure part, and they are going to prioritize their recurring payments, because that cannot wait. That cannot wait. You will have to pay your employees. You'll have to pay the workers. So this needs to be taken care of. You'll have to pay the interest on the loan that you have taken. So they'll have to reprioritize and cut. So what is going to suffer? Development. Second, they can ask for help. Ask the center for help. Now here also there is a challenge. Center also has a limited capacity right now. Because of the West Asia crisis, we are already dealing with a supply shock. We are already dealing with a total oil shock. So this is something that the center is already taking care of. And not just the center, whenever such a crisis happens, the union government as well as the states also are affected, right? Because the transport prices are going to increase, electricity prices are going to increase, inflation is going to happen, everything is going to happen. State governments also need to control that. But when states, they have let's say these types of deficits, revenue deficits, it hits them disproportionately. States which have a revenue surplus or a revenue balance, they will be able to deal in this crisis more effectively, versus the states which have a deficit and the states that have a debt burden, they'll be affected more severely. So right now that's what these 9 states are also witnessing, that they are more severely affected, and at the same time center also has very limited capacity at the moment to help these states, to give them spending, because it's already taking care of a lot of things. So this crisis, this artificial crisis that has actually been manufactured is making everybody suffer, right? So what does the article say? Article says that the states need to maintain a zero revenue deficit. Zero revenue deficit, meaning that whatever income you are generating or whatever expenditure that you have, you should be able to take care of that from the income that you are generating. If your expenditure is of 100 rupees, your income should also be 100 rupees, so that you're not in a deficit. There is a balance. So that is taken care of, but then you need to take care of development. For that, definitely go ahead and borrow, but that will ensure that whatever you are borrowing is actually going to be spent on development and investment only. It is not going to be spent on the recurring payments, which becomes a wastage of that money. Right. So this balance, this rule says zero revenue deficit, that whatever expenditure, revenue expenditure you should be able to take care of it through the revenue that you are generating. And whatever borrowing you are doing, that borrowing should only be for investment and developmental purposes. Okay. Moving on to the third article, it's on May Day. Today is 1st of May, which is the Labor Day, May Day. And it is questioning the workforce reality of India. Okay, so it's actually saying that, is May Day a day to celebrate? Is it a day to commemorate? Or is it actually a day to ask some deeper questions, that what about the rights of workers in India? What about the living conditions of workers, working conditions of workers? And even after so many years, of independence and 100 years of, the Trade Unions Act coming into place, have we really been able to give the workers that they deserve? So should we really be celebrating this day, or should we be looking at the ground realities? And for that, the article has mentioned two events. First event we saw very recently was the Noida garment workers protest, where this protest, like thousands of workers from 300 factories, they protested because they wanted better minimum wages, right? It is upon the states to decide the minimum wage. And what they realized is that the workers in Haryana, they were actually getting more money. They were getting more minimum wage for the same amount of work that they were doing. So workers in two areas, worker in Delhi NCR, workers in Haryana, now they are doing the same amount of work. They are putting in the same amount of working hours. They are generating the same amount of output, but they are being paid in disproportionate manner. Haryana workers are getting more, and the workers in Delhi, they are getting less. The workers in Noida, they are getting less. So this is the concern that they raised. This is the concern that the workers raised, and then protests happened, right? So they demanded 20,000 per month as a minimum wage. So there was a gap of some 16,000 to 20,000. Let's say 16,000 is what they were getting and 20,000 is what they were demanding. And this gap, this article mentions that this gap is not just a regular gap. In 4,000, a lot of things can be decided. You know, your standard of living, or the rent that you are paying, or the school that you are sending your child into, these things can be decided. It's not exactly a very small gap. And for the same amount of work that is being done by the workers in the neighboring areas, we should exactly not be suffering. So this is what these workers, they were questioning. And the question here was, what is the price of their labor? What is the price of their labor? They are doing the same amount of labor. What is the price of their labor? How is the price of labor being decided? Minimum wages, I told you, are upon the states to decide. So how are you deciding these minimum wages? We are putting in the same amount of effort. We are putting in the same amount of labor. So how is the price of labor being decided? Okay. Second event was around a plant explosion, a power plant in Chhattisgarh that was owned by Vedanta Limited. Boiler explosion happened and it got 20 workers killed and 15 injured. So it affected a lot of people. It affected 20 workers were killed and 15 were injured. So this again raised a bigger question, that the price of being alive while working, such a basic requirement. You have to be alive while working, right? It should not be so hazardous. It should not be so dangerous that your life is in danger. So many people lost their lives because of negligence, and these workers, they were actually contractors. They were contractors. So these are the questions that we are asking, that what is the price of being alive while working, and what is the price of labor? We very recently introduced the new labor laws. There also a lot of changes happened. Recognition was given to the gig workers. Then overtime rules, they changed, working hours rules, everything. Things changed, compliance rules changed. So the article is asking a bigger question, that is this reform actually providing protection, or is it stripping off the protection from many of the workers and many of the establishments? So let's look at that. India's labor reforms happened on November 21, 2025. We implemented 4 labor laws, 29 central laws subsumed into 4 labor laws. Code on Wages, Industrial Relations Code, Code on Social Security and Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code, right? These came in. A lot of good things happened, but then questions were raised on the exclusion, because these codes, they actually excluded certain things, certain establishments, certain types of workers, and they stripped them of their protection. So how did that happen? So reform has reduced protection is what the article is saying. Number 1, layoffs were made easier. Layoffs were made easier. So earlier the norm was that if an establishment has 100 workers or more, then in order to fire somebody, an approval will be required. Approval from the government is going to be required. And now the new norm says that this is going to be moved up to or scaled up to 300 workers. If you have 300 workers or more, in that case you require an approval. If you have 250 workers, 200 workers, 299 workers, that is also not a small amount or a small number, but in that case you are not going to require an approval. If you have 300 workers or more, then you will require an approval. So from 100 we scaled up to 300, which means we did what? We simply increased the threshold, and that threshold stripped away the protection from many workers, because now firing becomes easier. Firing employees is becoming easier, right? This is life. Let's get back to the topic, please. Changed the factory definition. Factory definition. Earlier the factory's definition was that establishments with 10 workers or more. Factory definition. Now when an establishment becomes a factory, there are certain norms that have to be practiced, certain protection that has to be given. Enforcement basically becomes more stringent, more stronger. So the factory definition was changed from 10 employees or more, it was made to 20 workers or more. 10 workers or more, you were a factory earlier. Now 20 workers or more, you are a factory. So again what? We increase the threshold. Now we increase the threshold, which means that establishments who have 15 workers, 16 workers, 19 workers, they are not a factory. Now when they are not a factory, there are certain compliance norms that they will not have to comply with. So we are giving factories additional benefit. But what about the workers? There were certain protection norms that the factories are supposed to comply with, but when an establishment is not a factory in the first place, it will not comply with any such thing. So we are giving protection to the factory, but we are stripping off the protection from the workers, from the employees who are over there, right? Inspection system weakened. Inspection system weakened, meaning earlier the inspection used to happen in a very unannounced manner, just how inspection should be, in a surprised manner, that any time an inspection officer can come in and it can do a field visit, an inspection can happen, and whatever irregularities are there will be brought to the surface, because this is an unannounced visit. Now what has changed, that now the inspection can happen with a warning, that the inspection officer can give a warning, they can intimate, they can notify the establishment that this inspection is going to happen on so and so date, or in the next few in the next 2 or 3 days we will be going to visit the area. So such kind of an intimation is already there, and when this happens, it gives time to the people to actually comply with things. It will give time to the owners to fix any irregularity, or at least appear to be fixing those irregularities, project to fix those irregularities, that even if they are not fixing irregularities on the ground level, but for those areas, or for that for those couple of days, or for that visit, they are going to fix that irregularity temporarily, right? So that they get certified, or whatever they get, they basically get, they're not accused of anything. So the inspection system has weakened. Then strikes have been made difficult. Strikes have been made difficult. The entire agenda of a strike is to actually, for the workers to be able to put forward their whatever issues that they are facing, put forward their issues in a collective manner, in a proper manner, in a collective manner. And we also have trade unions. They have a legal right. People can form associations, they can form trade unions. It's also a fundamental right. Right to strike is not a fundamental right. Right to form associations and trade unions, that is a fundamental right. So strike earlier could happen unannounced, and that is when it could have created the most impact, because the work will start getting hampered. If the workers, instead of working, they go and sit on a strike, then the employers are going to listen more, because their work is getting hampered. But now what has happened, that they'll need to give a 60 days notice before a strike. A 60 days notice will have to be given, and in these 60 days the companies can actually look for substitutes. They can look for alternative plans on how to cope up with these things. So now it is no longer it doesn't have this element of surprise. It is not announced, the work is not getting hampered. So all these things will actually they are diluting the power of these trade unions, or diluting the power of strikes. Even mass leaves are going to be declared as a strike. So if a mass leave also happens according to these new laws, even if there is a mass leave, that will be treated as a strike, and if that strike is unannounced, then people or the workers, they'll have to face its consequences. Correct? And contract labor system again is a challenge. I told you the Vedanta case that we saw, the boiler explosion, there also these people were subcontracted. And when people are not full-time employees, when workers are not full-time employees, are actually contractors, then the protection that they are being given, that is also limited in amount. So people or the companies, they are not exactly obligated to provide them with protection. They are not obligated to give them the the exact great working conditions and the environment and every hit, because they can take care of this loophole that they are not full-time employees. They are not full-time employees. They are actually contractors. So when we have full-time employees, we have social protection, we have their working rights, we have working conditions that we have to take care of. Firing of people is not that easy. But with contractors, that is not the case. You don't have a tenure, you don't have a fixed tenure. People can be, fired anytime they want without a proper notice, without a proper reason. So contractors do not have a lot of rights in the country at the moment. And this is also a major challenge, because till now the majority of our workforce, somewhere around 90% of the workforce, is still in the informal sector. And this contract labor section or labor system that we talk about, it is actually informalization within the formal sector, So in the formal sector also, this type of an informalization is happening, where people just hire contractor for a lot of their work, and when they hire contractors, they are not obligated to give them all the social protection, or give them proper working conditions, or have a proper safety net built around them. They can work according to their, or they can decide their fate according to their own needs. So this is also a challenge at the moment. And if we talk about the gig workers in particular, so gig workers are the most affected, again, because I told you that the informal sector dominates the workforce in the world, in the country. And when we talk about gig workers, so gig workers, one good thing happened, that we recognized gig workers. In the labor laws, in the new labor laws, Code on Social Security, we actually recognized the gig workers. But we need to understand that recognition does not mean protection. Recognition is the first step. It does not guarantee mandatory protection, meaning protection is voluntary. Government can now create these welfare schemes. Government or companies, they can do certain things. They can protect the gig workers, but they are not mandatorily obligated to protect the workers. So we only received a recognition, that we defined who are gig workers and everything, but they have not been given with a lot of rights. Rights have not been guaranteed. This is the bigger question. The rights are not guaranteed. No employer responsibility, because if you see these food delivery apps that we have, or even the grocery delivery apps that we have, instead of using the term contractor, or instead of using the term let's say they are an employee, they use the terms like partners. They use the term like partners, and partners are different from full-time employees. Same manner as contractors are different from full-time employees, partners are also different from full-time employees. Full-time employees will be given a huge amount of protection and everything. Partners will not be. So this is also a major challenge with the gig economy, that they are not exactly full-time employers. Full-time employees, they are part-time present there, or they are working as partners over there. So that's why also they are not really covered under all these protection norms that we have from the employers. Then the welfare depends on future schemes. It's all futuristic. There is a possibility that the welfare schemes can be created, government can create, the employers can provide. So it's all possible. Like there is the future possibility of these things, future policy possibility for that matter. But right now nothing is exactly mandated. So these are the bigger challenges that we have in our labor laws that are still persistent, and that's why the article says that even though we are celebrating the labor law, should we really be celebrating the law? Because till now we are asking such basic questions like, what is the price of being alive while working? You have to be alive while working. What is the price of labor? So we are asking these bigger questions, and even after the reforms taking place, these reforms definitely are protecting. But who are they protecting? The agenda of the government over here largely was to promote ease of doing business. ease of doing business, because we want to increase the investment, because we want people to come in, invest in India, have companies in India, establish companies in India, generate employment in India. For that, we will have to give them ease of doing business. We'll have to ease on the compliance norms. We'll have to make things easy for them. But at the same time, it should not be at the cost of labor safety. It should not be at the cost of labor safety, right? These things that we listed over here, they're actually stripping the workers of their protection. So the government will have to strike a balance between ease of doing business and labor safety. This is what the article demands. Okay. Moving on to the next article for today, it's around the island project. Island project has strategic value, says ex-IAF chief. Now, which island project is this? It is the Great Nicobar project. Great Nicobar project. The Great Nicobar project is actually a very important project that has been in news for a while now because of the development that it is going to bring about and the concerns that are around this development. So it's a developmental project. It has strategic and military significance also, but at the same time it is also raising certain environmental concerns. So that is why this project becomes important for us. So let's first see the location. Where is the Great Nicobar? This is the Great Nicobar. This is the Great Nicobar. Southernmost island of India, and it is very close to the Strait of Malacca. Strait of Malacca, one of the busiest shipping routes of the world. It is very close to the Strait of Malacca. That's why also it is very, very strategic. And here in this entire region, if we see, China has been growing its dominance. China has been growing this dominance everywhere, and that's why also it becomes very important for India to pay attention to such areas. The Great Nicobar. This is close to Indonesia. It's close to the Strait of Malacca. So it's very important for us to focus on this area. Okay. So what do we want to build in this project? These are some important things that we want to do. First is the International Container Transshipment Terminal that we want to build. That's actually a massive port that we want to build at the Galathea Bay. Okay, Galathea Bay is somewhere here. Galathea Bay. So we want to build a international container transshipment port, meaning that here these small cargoes, they can empty themselves, they can put their stuff in the large cargoes, and from there we can have shipment going across the other parts of the world. Right now we are heavily dependent on Colombo, we are dependent on Singapore, and very recently we inaugurated the Vizhinjam port in Kerala. That was also a transshipment port. So this is the vision that we have with Great Nicobar also, that we want to develop an international container transshipment terminal, and this is going to help us do two things, two very important things. First, save money. Whatever money earlier for loading and offloading that we were giving to Colombo, to Singapore, we can save that money. Second, also earn money. Now we have this capacity. When we have this capacity, we can leverage this capacity. We can give this facility to other countries also. We can become a great hub, a massive hub. We can give this facility. We can give this facility to other parts of the world as well, and then we can earn money also. So while saving money, we can also earn money. So economic benefits are there of this project. Then we want to build a greenfield international airport for better connectivity of this region with all parts of the world. We want to build a greenfield international international airport, and this airport is actually going to have civilian use also and defense use also. As and when required, it can also be used by the defense forces of the country, and civilian use is going to be there. Okay. Infrastructure development. We want to focus on the development of infrastructure in the region. We want to build more roads, more highways, this airport that we talked about, transshipment port and everything. So we want to create a lot of development, generate a lot of development in this area. And along with that, we also want to focus on rapid urbanization. Rapid urbanization meaning that from the present population of some 8,000, we want to scale it up to 3.5 lakh people. 3.5 lakh people. How will we do that? So for that, the plan is actually to create a township, like all these migrants, all the workers who are going to come in, the construction workers. How will these things be generated? Construction is going to happen, workers will be coming in, their families will be settling in. So a proper colony is going to be created, a township is going to be created. Auxiliary things will also come in. If there is a township, then schools, colleges, shops, etc. All these things will also come in. Then people who run that will also come in. So this is the way that the town is actually going to be set up. So a rapid urbanization is also a goal over here. And then strategic and military significance is already there. I told you this port is going to be helpful for defense forces also, and China has been growing its dominance in the entire region, so it becomes extremely important for us to have our presence also, and it's very close to the Strait of Malacca, so that way also it has a very strategic importance. So these are the things that we are wanting to achieve with the Great Nicobar project. But then what are the concerns? What are the concerns? Every developmental project has certain concerns. First and foremost is the environmental concern. Environmental concern because this area is rich in biodiversity. You look at the location over here and you will be able to understand it is rich in biodiversity. It is going to have a lot of different types of different species of flora and fauna. A lot of things are going to be there. In fact, this bay that we were talking about, the Galathea Bay, it is actually a nesting site for the leatherback turtle. Leatherback turtle. All this development that we are talking about, that will give rise to deforestation. Then this habitat is going to be encroached upon. So we'll have to draw a fine line between the development of an area versus, or between the development of an area and the ecological balance of that area also. We cannot strip off an area of its biodiversity. This area has rich biodiversity. So environmental concerns are there. We don't want a lot of deforestation to happen, and we don't want these a lot of encroachment and habitat encroachment to happen for the different species. Then disaster vulnerability, we don't want to increase the vulnerability of disasters in this region, because this region is already prone to tsunami, it is prone to earthquake. So when we talk about this large scale development, large scale infrastructure development, we don't want to make this region more vulnerable to disasters than it already is. So disaster vulnerability is also a major challenge over here. And then we also need to focus on the tribal rights. One of the most important things is the tribal rights issue. So we have some important tribes that are found here, Champagne and Nicobaris, and tribals, they are known for their dependence on the forest ecosystem, on the nearby natural ecosystem. They have a unique cultural identity, unique identity, regional identity, and they don't really like interacting with others. And the encroachment of tribal rights should also not happen, because we are talking about scaling up the population from 8,000 to 3.5 lakhs. So they will be reduced to just a minority. In their own homeland, they will be reduced to a minority, and then they might just feel like an outsider, because encroachment is going to happen. So we need to take care of tribal rights also, that their rights are not violated, and because of the deforestation that is going to happen, their their habitat or their lifestyle should not be hampered. So this is some issue. So these are concerns, but again, this is actually a very important developmental project, very important from a defense point of view as well. So we have to take care of those needs also, defense needs also, and at the same time we also have to take care of the environment, so that minimum damage happens to the environment. Damage will happen, but minimum damage happens to the environment. And in this era of human conflict, we are actually not encroaching upon the rights of the different species or the environment that we have. Environment should not be paying the cost of this human conflict that we have. We want to increase our dominance, we want to ensure our safety, our security, but for that, environment should not be paying the cost. Okay. Moving on to the next article, it is about the opposition demanding that we should make the right to vote a fundamental right. Now, is this a fundamental right? No, that is why they are demanding it should be a fundamental right. Then what is it? Right to vote is actually a legal right. It is a statutory right. We get this right from the Representation of People Act 1950 and 1951, and it is also mentioned in Article 326 of the Constitution. This talks about universal adult suffrage. It tells us who can vote and who cannot vote. So every citizen of India who's 18 years and above can vote subject to certain conditions. There are conditions that are listed for disqualification also. So this article also does not guarantee that you have a right to vote. Like, you have a right to vote. It's not a fundamental right. It is outside Part 3 of the Constitution. It is mentioned in the Constitution, and it more likely or more importantly, it talks about the different the criteria that is listed for voting, like who can vote and who cannot vote. It is not guaranteeing somebody's right to vote, that every citizen above 18 years of age can vote. That is not the case. There are certain disqualification criteria also, and most importantly, this is not mentioned under Part 3 of the Constitution. It is not a fundamental right. It is actually a statutory or legal right. Right? So RPA 1950-1951 talks about it. Article 326 also talks about it. But what are the current concerns? Why is the opposition saying that we want to make this a fundamental right? Please make this a fundamental right. Because we see a lot of irregularities in the voters list at the moment. The voters' rights also are compromised. If I am an eligible voter and my name is not there in the electoral list because of any technical glitch, because of any issue, then my voting rights are being hampered, and for that I cannot approach the Supreme Court at the moment, because it is not a fundamental right. Had it been a fundamental right, I could have gone to the Supreme Court and the enforcement could have been stronger. Correct? First of all, the violation will not take place so easily. If this was a constitutional right, if this was a fundamental right, the violation would not have taken place so easily. And even if it did, then in that case the enforcement would actually become stronger. But that's not the case. We see a lot of irregularities in the voter list. We see duplicate entries, we see eligible entries out of it, and then there is also administrative control over elections. This has been the major challenge that the opposition has been listing, that there is administrative control. It's not always fair. The electoral rolls, the elections and everything, they're not always fair. So this is a challenge, and now because this is not a fundamental right to vote is not a fundamental right, all these things cannot be directly taken up in the Supreme Court, right? Just like other fundamental rights would have been. So that's why they want us to want this to be a right to, want us to be a fundamental right. But at the same time, we need to understand that this is not a new debate. It actually has been going for many years. And the challenge over here is that our judiciary right now is already swamped with work. There is already a pendency of cases. Do we want to add this additional burden on the judiciary, that it now also takes care of these voter list, electoral rolls and everything? Because that way the encroachment actually is going to be a lot. And do we really want to increase that burden? We have a separate mechanism for that. The Election Commission of India is there. We have a separate mechanism for everything. But do we want to burden the Supreme Court? Do we want to burden the judiciary with all these things? This is the major issue. This is the major issue that has been highlighted by the experts. The reason that has been given, that because of this reason, because we do not want to increase the judiciary burden of the judiciary with such cases also, there is a separate mechanism. There are laws. There is a separate mechanism that can deal with such things. So let those laws deal with those things, and let not really burden the judiciary with this additional charge. But the opposition has been saying that it should be a right to, it should actually be a fundamental right. So let's see if that happens or not, if the constitution is amended or not. But this is actually a debate that is ongoing, that has been ongoing for a while now, and I think for now as well, it is going to remain a legal and a statutory right itself, because it's not really going to be made a fundamental right, at least in the near future. Okay. Now we'll talk about the other article. I will answer the comments once the explanation is done. I hope that is okay. Let me finish the articles. Post that, we'll take up the comments. So this other article talks about green methanol plant, that we are getting the green methanol plant, India's first green methanol plant, and this is going to turn Kutch's most invasive weed into marine fuel. Now this is revolutionary in itself, because we are talking about an invasive species, one of the most invasive species, plant species in the world, and we are talking about turning it into a fuel. We are talking about not just clearing it up, not just cleaning it up, we are turning it into a fuel. So this is what? This is waste to wealth generation. This is circular economy, and not just any fuel. We are going to change it into a clean fuel. So a lot of things will happen. Our import dependence will come down if things work appropriately in a scaled up manner. A lot of good is going to come out of this, right? So that's why it becomes extremely important that we are going to turn the most invasive weed into a clean fuel, green methanol. So which plant are we talking about? It is the Prosopis juliflora. It is also known by these names in Gujarati, North India and in Tamil Nadu. These are the local names of this weed, of this species. This is one of the most invasive species, and I told you it's an alien species. It does not grow naturally in India. It was introduced in India by the Britishers in 1920s. Because it is an invasive species, it can easily encroach the entire area. It can kill the native plants and it can encroach the entire area. So they introduced it to increase the green cover around Delhi. Okay, the Britishers introduced it to increase the green cover. And then here we are talking about Kutch. We are talking about bunny grasslands. Bunny grasslands, they are very dominant in the bunny grasslands. So how did it reach Gujarat? So Gujarat Forest Department in 1961 introduced it in Kutch. Okay, and now this is the most invasive species, and our goal over here is to turn this invasive species into a clean fuel. Which clean fuel? Green methanol. Green methanol. So what is methanol? Methanol is actually a liquid fuel. It is used very extensively in the shipping industry, in the chemicals industry, and also in the energy systems. And what we use right now, what we have right now is grey methanol. It is grey methanol because it is being generated from the fossils. It is being generated by fossils. So it is grey methanol. It is polluting. But we want to turn it into green methanol. What do we want to produce? We want to produce green methanol, which is actually clean, which is clean in nature. It will not cause these amounts of emissions, and it will actually be revolutionary for the shipping industry. Okay. So how are we going to do that? First step is that we collect the biomass, in this case the plant that we talked about, Prosopis juliflora. We are going to collect that, and then we are going to dry it up. And then we are going to convert it into a gas. How will we convert it into a gas? Through the process of pyrolysis. This is also an important part of science, so it's important that we know what this is. Pyrolysis, we are going to subject it into under intense heat. Okay, we are going to subject the biomass to intense heat, and then a breakdown is going to happen. Pyrolysis is going to take place, and an important gas is going to be created. That gas is syngas or synthetic gas. Syngas is made up of carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and small amounts of CO2 is also generated, right? Largely carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Now this gas, syngas, is actually going to be converted to methanol. So this is actually green methanol. The third step would be conversion to methanol. Conversion of what? Conversion of syngas to methanol. So we started with the biomass, we converted the biomass into a gas, and then that gas was converted into methanol, green methanol. And this green methanol is going to revolutionize the shipping industry, because right now we use bunker fuel in the ships, and that is highly polluting. Now when we substitute the bunker fuel with green methanol, up to 95% of CO2 reduction will happen. CO2 emissions are going to come down drastically. 80% less NOx, nitrogen oxides reduction is going to happen, like 80% of less nitrogen oxides are going to be emitted, and almost no, very important, almost no sulfur pollution will take place. So nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, these are actually pollutants. They are they are pollutants that damage the air quality, right? And when we talk about nitrogen oxides and sulfur oxides in particular, when they come in contact with water, they also give rise to acid rain because of sulfuric acid and nitric acid. So these are pollutants that damage the environment heavily. So this is a good thing that almost no sulfur pollution will happen, and 80% less nitrogen oxides are going to be emitted. Carbon emission or carbon dioxide emission is also going to be reduced significantly, up to 95%, right? But then what is the challenge? What are the concerns? First and foremost, supply chain challenge. We are talking about collecting that weed. It's a weed, it grows very fast, it encroaches the entire area. We'll have to collect that feed, and at times it can be very labor intensive, right? It can be very labor intensive, so there is a supply chain challenge. Either we make use of technology over there, but if we are relying only on manual labor, it is going to be very, very labor intensive. Scaling issue. Now, do we have that amount of those large scale plants in India that can actually convert biomass into gas, and then that gas can be converted into methanol? Do we have those kinds of large scale projects in India? Not at the moment. So we don't have that capacity at the moment. It's still new. We'll have to build that capacity first. And in order to bring about this change, that we substitute bunker fuel with green methanol, because if we do that, we get all these advantages. But in order to make this change, we'll have to first scale this up. We will have to scale this up. Right now, we have very limited capacity. And with that limited capacity, this revolution cannot happen. So we will have to scale this up. And then compete with biomass use. There is a competing biomass use. Biomass right now is required for almost everything. We are looking for alternative fuels, cleaner fuels. Green methanol is a cleaner fuel, ethanol is a clean fuel. So we are looking at all these clean fuels, and for that biomass is required. So biomass is being required everywhere. Then biomass is also cattle feed. So we are competing with biomass use. It is required everywhere in all the industries, and at the same time, we also need to make sure that it is also required by cattle. It is also required as a fodder. So these are certain things, certain challenges that are present at the moment. But having said that, once we are able to work on the scaling issue, once we are able to generate this in a large scale capacity, and this substitution starts happening, then we will actually see our import dependence reducing. Import on crude oil is going to reduce because we are depending on a clean fuel now. Shipping industry is going to be revolutionized, and this is going to be extremely environment friendly. Okay. Moving on to the last article for today. This is around lifting abortion time limit for the minor rape survivors, given by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. So in an unfortunate incident, a 15-year-old girl child, she was raped brutally, and then she also got pregnant. So this was a 30-week pregnancy that she wanted to be terminated, but we know that under the MTP Act, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021, the cap is on 24 weeks. The limit that you can terminate an unwanted pregnancy, if that pregnancy is of 24 weeks, maximum 24 weeks. In this case, it was 30 weeks, and the Supreme Court said that you cannot decide, you meaning the hospitals or the government cannot decide if the survivor wants to keep the child or not. It should be the right, or it should be the say of the survivor or the parents of the survivor, whether they want to keep this pregnancy or not. And your role, the medical institution's role, simply should be to help them take an informed decision and then implement that decision. You just let the survivors know, or the parents of the survivors know, that these are going to be the consequences of the decision, and after that the decision should be solely of the survivor or the parents of the survivor, and we have to respect that and we have to implement that. Okay, so what happens right now? 24 weeks, if it is up till 24 weeks, that can be terminated, pregnancy can be terminated, medical boards give this approval. But what is the challenge? This was a 30-week pregnancy, and the medical board said, the hospital said that it is going to be dangerous for the girl child as well as for the unborn child if we proceed with the medical termination. But then the Supreme Court said that it is upon them to decide. We cannot really force the victim. The person is already a victim, and we cannot force them to carry an additional trauma if they don't want to. So they simply said that let you help them take an informed decision. You please lift this ban. Help them take an informed decision, and this is for the case of minor rape survivors. If the victim is a minor, if she's a rape survivor and she wants to terminate a pregnancy, please lift this ban of 24 weeks, and then you simply help them take an informed decision and then you implement it. Okay. So right now it is so this act, when it was amended in 2021, it increased the time limit for abortion from 20 to 24 weeks for the survivors of rape, minors and women with disabilities, right? And now the Supreme Court said that this minor rape survivor in this category, please lift this time limit that you have. Remove any time limit on medical termination of unwanted pregnancy caused by the rape of a minor. You should also bring an amendment not only in the MTP Act but also in the penal law that talks about dealing with the accused. So you have to make some amendments in the penal law also, making it mandatory to complete the trial in such cases in a week. The entire property of the accused should also be given to the victim. This is what the Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant, observed. So Justice simply said that please do not take this decision. It should be the decision of the survivor and the parents. You please amend the law. It asks the center to amend the law, but if this amendment takes place or not, it is upon the center to decide. But if in this case, as an exception, if this termination is allowed or not, again it's upon the, if the decision, like if the orders of the Supreme Court are implemented in this case or not, we'll have to see. But this is the reality, this is the ground reality in India, that we have laws, then there are nitty-gritties of laws, and there are loopholes in laws. And at the same time, we also have to understand it's all human rights issue also, that we have to take care of the rights of the victim, of the survivor also, and we have to take care of the rights of the unborn child also. And if a pregnancy is actually going to take both the lives, how should that be dealt? So these are very, very sensitive issues, very sensitive human rights issues that we need to take care of. Alright, so that was all for today's discussion. We'll look at a practice question first. So this is the Studio GS Foundation live online course. You know, this is a foundation course. So your complete prelims and main syllabus is going to be covered in 14 months. You have a live chat facility also. You get all of this at 34,999 rupees. And if you want to use a coupon code for an additional discount, please use this SALONI. And you will get an additional discount on this 34,999 rupees. So admissions are open. Please call us at 87501 and download the Drishti Learning app. Now we look at a practice question. Before we do that, let me see if you have any questions. For answer writing, you can take help of the courses that we have. If you want to take help of an expert guidance, you can always go ahead and do that. You can take help from that. Or if you want to do a self study, please look for a good peer group and write answers regularly and get them evaluated also. If you can get a mentor, nothing like it. A mentor will actually take care of evaluate your answer copies, and if not, get a good peer group for yourself. Do that peer evaluation, and the key over here is to practice as much as you can. Evaluate your notebooks, evaluate your answers, your friends' answers of the toppers. They're all available, and then see where you are lacking. Okay. All right. So let's look at the question. Consider the following statements about green methanol. 1. It is produced using renewable biomass or green hydrogen as feedstock. 2. It is completely free of carbon emissions during its production and use. 3. It can be used as a cleaner alternative fuel in the shipping sector. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 and 3 only, B. 1 and 2 only, C. 2 and 3 only, or D. 1, 2 and 3. Please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comment section. The link to this, the link to our Telegram channel is going to be pinned in the comment section. The PDF of this video is going to be uploaded over there. Please go ahead. You can download the PDF from our Telegram channel. And if you have any queries, you can reach out in the comment section. Thank you for watching.